Okay, our presenter today, Barry Murphy, Director of Business Development with EllisDon. Um, Barry is a British native. You can tell by his accent from 100 miles away. Began his journey in construction as an apprentice flooring contractor in 1994. Over the years, his career has evolved into a dynamic and multifaceted path spanning a variety of roles, industries, disciplines, and continents. Among his notable achievements are co-founding and leading a commercial flooring business in the UK, holding a senior leadership position at a global construction materials company, and serving as chair of an industry association board. Today, Barry serves as the Director of Business Development at EllisDon, one of the largest, if not the largest builder in Canada, I think. Passionate about inspiring the next generation, he frequently speaks at organizations, schools, and career fairs, sharing insights into the opportunities of careers in the construction industry. This industry needs more folks like you. I love it that EllisDon have got someone in your position doing what you do. At this point, I'll hand you over the screen and let's get going.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate the intro. And first and foremost, I get the little warm and fuzzies when I see some of those logos that popped up as your sponsors who support you are here because I work with many of them, even in the UK, like global brands there. That's it's always nice to see those logos and those names. It reminds me of being a much younger man. So yeah, as you put there, my name is Barry Murphy, Business Development Director for EllisDon. I'm based in the Edmonton Buildings Group office. My role spans really northern Alberta. Some projects move into BC and Saskatchewan strategically. We have projects even over towards Manitoba. But yeah, I've put a little short kind of presentation together here as really this is supposed to be more of a kind of an open conversation and discussion around skilled trade shortages and specifically commercial flooring, where it kind of stands today in comparison to when I entered the industry as an apprentice back in 1994. Many moons ago. So let me just jump forward to some of the agenda points here. And apologies if I do this incorrectly because I typically don't use Zoom. And for some reason, my slides. Oh, there we go. There we go. So we've got a little agenda for you here. So a little bit of background about me, a little bit of a reflection on the state of the industry, where we're looking at from 2030 and beyond, and then some of the key challenges that we face across our industry and across like the market perspective and competition, and then a few solutions that we can touch upon along the way. And as pointed out, if you want to ask any questions or pop something in the chat, or if I'm rambling away or I'm speaking too fast or any of those things, feel free to raise your hand, shout, point, whatever you need to do to catch my attention, and we can backtrack or we can expand upon whatever it is. Ultimate objective is to try and bring some value to all you folks online today. So the state of the industry, well, actually, I'm going to jump back. Before I jump to the state of the industry, my background, so we touched upon it. My family was a flooring contracting family. My dad was a flooring contractor. My uncle was a flooring contractor. And I was pretty much told at age 15, got your apprentice son, apprenticeship, this is what you're doing. Back then, legitimately was viewed as an apprenticeship, and it was more of a common practice. I was born and raised in Liverpool, England. Went my first company I worked for was based in Warrington, which is kind of like Red Deer between Edmonton and Calgary, except much closer. And I would work every day with the guys as an apprentice, and then for periods of time, blocks of time, go to Manchester, to Salford College, to do what was called an NVQ, a National Vocational Accreditation, to get qualified as a flooring contractor. It wasn't just a skill that you were supposed to pick up with the tradespeople. It was actually documented. There was colleges, there was training courses, and I think it was 3 or 4 years across the board that I attended that. So that was integrated as part of the role. Eventually, after kind of qualifying and working as more of a little bit of an older, like young but older worker, I eventually set up my own business. That was something I'd kind of aspired to do once I realized, like once I saw what the boss was driving and how his lifestyle looked versus some of the people I worked with. That was what I was after. I was very fortunate to be able to get that off the ground with a co-founder, a friend of mine who still runs a commercial flooring company in the UK right now. He still works across many of those logos that we've just seen. In fact, one of them he worked for a period of time. So flooring's always been in kind of my blood. It's even, although I represent all aspects of construction now with EllisDon, it's something that always kind of warms the soul when I see flooring guys working on site. So that's who I am, flooring. I'm not just a regular business development guy or a general contractor. My roots, the first 15 years of my life were purely commercial flooring or residential if it was tied to a commercial project or like a large, let's say, a national governing body. So,
So Barry, I've got a question for you. So when you're in that British school system, the equivalent of high school is, if my memory serves, secondary school, comprehensive school or whatever. Did you run into that as a trade option through the school curriculum, or was it because your dad said you're going to take this apprenticeship?
yeah, it was the second. It was me dad. It wasn't the school system was a little bit similar to here. It's always woodwork. It's always like the kind of
Carpentry.
traditional trade stuff. But obviously those vocations were there because there was colleges that were running programs. There was other programs. And you know what? If I'm honest, I might have been exposed to them. I was a typical 15-year-old paying zero attention to anybody and anything in school. I was just kind of, it was a family thing for me. So I was kind of pushed into it. But fortunately, there was a structure there. There was something to go to. There was other guys working all over the north of England. Like it was kind of cool too, meeting people from different places, specializing in different types of flooring, from everything from like impervious flooring to you covered the full array, different adhesives, different type of products, like different scenarios, how to scribe templates, you name it. It wasn't just like a couple of laying a few tiles. It was
Right.
pretty in depth.
Yeah, that's good. That's what we need to. We got work going on behind the scenes ourselves as we try to spotlight flooring as something a little different from and above and beyond the carpentry, which is an umbrella term which kind of gets in the way. And
Yeah,
quite frankly, as a 15-year-old myself, back in the 80s, that's all I got as a trade option was carpentry, and it turned me off, if anything.
yeah,
First time I ever heard anything about flooring as an option was when a buddy had been away all summer and he came back at the end of the summer. I said, "Where have you been all summer? We're supposed to be drinking and having fun." And he said, "I've been kicking carpet." And I said, "Well, what the hell does that mean?" I thought we walked on carpet.
yeah,
And then he told me how much he earned, and I almost fell over. And I would have done that, but it
yeah,
just wasn't even on my radar, like you said. And
yeah,
I think
and
it's the same here in Canada.
yeah, it is, unfortunately, and like I say, sadly, we look. I see it from a different perspective now. All the different scopes and all the different trades and all the different requirements needed to build like the image in the background, a tower, commercial, or this is a residential tower. But who's teaching this? Where's it coming from? We can't rely upon people just finding out and figuring out, and like that there has to be systems and the ability for people to learn and to make it feel more real, and something's being accomplished, right, stage by stage, year by year, and not just carpentry or mechanical,
Yeah,
electrical, plumbing, not just those trades. Like the needs that, as you say, you might have been put off by it. Me too. Like flooring is unique in terms of depending upon the projects. It can be lots of different places, lots of different materials. Like it's not something whereby you're necessarily on a job for a year or two. You could be on it for a day. You could be on it for a morning. Like you see a lot more variety and a lot more of the city or the province, and that really appealed to me. Frankly, I don't think I would have lasted on a job site for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. That didn't work for me. And flooring is a fast, quick, and it's got you use your hands. It's got yeah, you use your hands in carpentry, but it's very different working with a knife and very different, flowing like a screed or something with a trowel than it is, like cutting something with a saw or using a cordless drill. And this is what people need to kind of recognize is, it's different, right? And they're all different. Every one of these trades is different. And if we want to attract people to the industry, well, some may like that, some may not. Some may be like, "Oh, I don't like the smell of this." Well, that's okay. But some people are like, "Well, I do like the fact that it's very pliable with my hands, right? That I get to visit lots of different locations. That I'm not always working in a construction site. I'm renovating an interior of a building, and it's still warm. It's not cold. Like this, it's a very unique industry, and I think it's often missed. You can't compare it to other trades. They're all totally neutral.
yeah,
So to me, yeah, I think we definitely, well, we'll touch on a bit more of that, but I think that's important to note is it's not out there enough. And the reason it's not out there, and I understand why, is there's not a demand for it because it's the whole supply and demand equation. Why would there be, a demand in terms of the training aspect if the supply isn't coming through? These colleges and universities, they're businesses, and they're not going to put on courses that aren't going to get filled. Like they're not, and ultimately people aren't going to fill them if they can, small business owners, if they ultimately don't need to, if they can get away with just kind of make and do. And that's, it's all part of the conversation. So
Yeah, that's exactly what Northern Alberta Institute of Technology ran into a few years ago. That's why they shut down the flooring program.
yeah,
So the flooring industry needs to be in front of those kids, confident about what it is, and very clear about the pathway you need to take.
yeah,
I think then flooring, everybody, there's always people are going to be interested in whatever the subject you present them. You just got to find those people and give them a reason to be interested, and then they stick.
yeah.
Um, and flooring needs to do a better job on that, and we're looking into that as an industry behind the scenes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
work to do.
Well, so if I jump onto the next slide, like as in a state of the industry, which is directly applicable to flooring as part of the construction industry, we all know that that's the statistic I heard. That I was at a conference on Wednesday, construction innovation conference, and it was at the University of Alberta. There was big other general contractors there, lots of people from the industry, and one of the topics was skilled labor. And one of the things that was brought up is that for every three people leaving the construction industry and the trades industry, only one is being replaced. So we're at a ratio of 1 to 3 for losing three and only ever gaining kind of one. On top of that, one of the slides that was really interesting that was put up was, as far as productivity goes, the construction industry over the past 75 years has almost like regressed. He put a graph up compared to agriculture, compared to other sectors. They've got more and more, like they're much, much more operating efficiently. They've got productivity has increased. Ours has kind of plateaued or dropped a little bit because things are getting more complex. Like contract models are changing. Who can work for who? Less, I guarantee you, less training and apprenticeships have also fallen off in recent years. All of these things like add up to the fact that we know we've got a new prime minister who's talking about wanting to build and build and build. Um, that's just physically not possible if we're not able to attract people to our industry. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, whether it's flooring, whether it's any other trade, and obviously construction in general. We've got an identity like problem, right? The youth and the demographic that we need to be stimulating. They don't see careers in skilled trades and construction as a viable option right now. It's just not. Or part of it is we've also got a bit of a marketing problem too, because we're targeting those kids that are naturally interested in woodwork, let's say, or mechanics, and kids that are working with their hands. When the reality is that are kids out there, really maybe like me, I wouldn't necessarily have chosen flooring. I was told to go into flooring, but I've ended up in roles that I'm in now, like more business development, proposals, creative stuff, client facing stuff. Maybe that was naturally more what I was tended to be, but it appealed to me once I kind of got in there, right? And it's, I think we need to broaden the opportunities and the education to show the youth like that. Hey, here's the options. Here's what comes. Here's the income for a start. Like money is a motivator. Well, we've got like a triple to attack this. We've got a triple head. We've got to inspire and attract the next generation. They've got to look and see this as a career. They've got to look and say, okay, yeah, I can see myself doing it. Maybe I don't want to be a bricklayer. Maybe I don't want to be a pipe fitter welder, but you know what? I could handle flooring. Like that seems like, working with all these different materials in different places and they get paid good money. You're also self-sufficient. You're in your own little van or your own little truck and you're going from one place to the next, picking up materials, doing jobs. I can see myself kind of doing that. I can go to, let's say, Nate. I can go to an institution and get a qualification and feel that I'm a little bit a part of that world as well. So one, we've got to show them. Two, we've got to look at the parents, right? Because if little Joey goes home to his mum, having had the National Floor Covering Association into talking about this industry, talking about trades or EllisDon, and we managed to get him on the hook and thinking, yeah, I could see myself doing that. And he goes home to his parents, and they're just like, yeah, no, like construction's that's a hard no. That's not
No
the
way.
industry
You're
for you.
going to you're going to university to get a history degree, little
Yeah,
Johnny.
that's it. It's over. So we need to educate, we need to inspire and educate and broaden the net on the youth and the younger demographic. We need to educate the parents in terms of, listen, here's the reality. Let's use me as an example from a 15-year-old apprentice on £50 a week. So let's say your best case scenario, $2 an hour, to eventually a business owner to be able to emigrate to another continent, to take that skill and trade with you, take those qualifications with you, to move into multiple different sectors and end up in an entirely different role. That's a possibility. If you plot that out, there's a gazillion people like me who started out over here and built a career and ended up over here, or built a business off the ground and become very successful. These are the things they don't know and they don't see. And entrepreneurship is one word that's just not used enough in construction. But name another industry where people get their own businesses off the ground or manage to be self-sufficient more than construction. Like I don't think you can find one over a long term. You might be little miniature entrepreneurial ventures that pop up and fizzle away. But most people, once they learn a trade, if they're personable, if they can do a good job and they're reliable, they'll never be out of work. And I don't think the parents understand that. You show them the debt of regular academia, of the student loans and of the whatever. Look at people coming out. You look at the world, technology, AI, how things are changing. You go in year one, you come out in year 3 or 5, and the job that you qualified for doesn't really need you anymore. Whereas the reality is we are a gazillion miles away from anything replacing a man or a woman with a knife in their hand or a trowel or a whatever, like doing these things. They might get more efficient, but we need people. We need somebody to be able to look and recognize, to use the laser levels, to use these things. So the parents is 2, and then 3 is kind of like it's the school system itself. It's the teachers. It's the career advisors. They don't know this either. Like you mentioned Nate. So Nate and the Edmonton Construction Association, which is my local association, EllisDon, along with PCL, along with Leadcore, Bird Construction. We've got like a small group here, which we're calling like the Edmonton Skilled Trades Alliance, where we're meeting on a monthly basis to sit down and say, okay, how as a group do we tackle this challenge, right? How do we come together all on the same page and look at our industry, and how do we approach governments? Because that's the one thing that's always missed out. Like this conference was great on Wednesday, excellent conference, but there was nobody there from government. And part of the challenge is the money comes from governments. We'll talk a little bit more about contracts and stuff. It's a little bit different when you're a general contractor versus a subcontractor. But ultimately, what the requirements for work are driven by governments, and incentives can be implemented by governments. Saying that we want more skilled trades, saying that we want people to enter the trades, people are only going to do things they're incentivized to do or are required to do, which is
and the message that goes to the teachers.
Yes, and that's the point. So they need to see government is serious about this. Like right now, Nate are building a huge facility. It's literally just been awarded, and they're building a massive skilled trades facility. These things are getting built all around Canada now. The thing is, we've got to say, okay, by the time all these buildings are open, by the time all these upgrades happen, how do we broaden the trades on offer? How do we get commercial flooring in the building? How do we get the government to promote it? How do we get the schools to understand it? Like we've got working back from 2030. This is a problem that can be proactively addressed over the course of the next 5 years. Like they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. And we know today that we're heading off a cliff when it comes to skilled trades and shortages, and we cannot build a stronger Canada or a stronger province without boots on the ground, without people who want to be there, who've chosen to be there, not people who are just ending up there because there was nothing else to do. Because that's what often happens, right? It's a fallback. It's got money. We've got to change that messaging, and we if we know it's there, and we know it's coming, then it's on us, right? As individuals in the industry, as companies, to proactively say, how do we come together? The way collaboration is used, 10 a penny these days in every aspect, and there's collaborative contract models, there's collaborative this. Well, we collaboratively, governments, like institutionally, association-wise, individual trades, individual contractors who on other levels are competing. This is an industry problem. And as an industry, we've got to rise to the challenge and say, okay, what are we going to do together? Once the problem's fixed, once the pipeline, the funnel is there, the systems are in place, we can go back to competing, no problem, right? And yeah, for sure, we'll compete along the way. But if we all stay siloed, if I talk about this only and you talk about that only, and we don't look at it holistically, then really we're fighting 50 battles instead of one war that is winnable and achievable across a 5 year. We've got 5 years. That's a long time to be able to put something in place but it's insufficient 2030 if we don't start until 2029. It takes 3 to 5 years to get a solid understanding of any trade. You might be able to get qualifications faster, you might be able to learn the ropes faster, but for you to be able to be sent out off onto your own projects, you're going to have learned to learn the ropes in that time frame. And as we're losing people every year more and more, like you're seeing guys leave the industry, you can't replace them. Like their knowledge and experience from 40 to 50 years, like we need that from them. And that's where the other aspect of how do we, or how could government entice people to kind of stay longer, work longer, like maybe through some sort of tax like ability, like tax credit or tax exemption, to say, yeah, we need what you know, right? Like, how do we keep you in the industry? How do we get you a job at a NATE or an equivalent to teach these things? Like, how do we do these things? We've got to look way more broad and way more outside the box. Otherwise, this problem will grow instead of kind of shrink.
Do you think the government would look at something like training those retiring
I,
folks to mentor?
I think they will only look at this if we as an industry propose it to them in the right way. If we sit down, like I say, if the more people are, if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet instead of everybody singing different songs and tailoring it just to themselves, if we're like, look, here's some ideas. We're not telling you what to do. We're just saying we've done our research. We know we're in the industry. It's our industry. But if you want to spend $15 billion on defense upgrades, and a huge portion of those billions are in structures and infrastructure and whatnot, and you want to build all these hospitals. Alberta alone was, I think it was over 12 billion in schools to be built over the course of a period of time. EllisDon are fortunate enough to be building them right now. Like we need the workers to be able to accomplish what you're setting out to say. Hey, our provinces are growing, Canada's growing, population's growing. We want to attract people from abroad, which is another topic of conversation. How do we reskill some of these people? How do we certify them? How do we get everybody? We've got it's a supply and demand problem. Like we need people. Like how do we get smart? How do we make it like quick and easy and efficient to get people in to upskill? Right, as technology increases, people like unfortunately certain careers are going to get narrower and narrower, and people are going to be forced to pivot. Well, we can say, yeah, we've got the training centers, we've got the people, the experience. We can take this person who's formally done this, and we can turn them into one of these people certified. And we know there are companies that are looking for people, and you're incentivizing these companies at the same time to do so, because you're being proactive yourself and saying, hey, we can't afford an industry that across North America is worth $1.3 trillion to just grind to a halt because we've just hoped somebody else is going to figure it out, right? Or that it falls down to the small business owners, or it falls to the manufacturers, or it falls to the associations. That's not fair, right? Ultimately it's an economic problem. If countries can't build, if provinces can't build, everything grinds to a halt or slows down, or the cost of the wages for the individuals that are in the industry skyrocket. And then all of a sudden the cost to build becomes too high. Like it's one thing to build when wages are where they're supposed to be. And I want tradespeople to get paid as much as fair as possible. Like get them up there. I think they deserve it. But once it gets to a certain height, it becomes ineffective. Private developers will simply say, no, project's on hold. Government, it's a little bit different, but they're not going to get the bang for their buck because they're having to overpay because it's scarcity, it's value, right? The less people with those skills, the more they're worth, and that money, and someone will always pay it, and it climbs and climbs and climbs, and then companies can go bankrupt because they can't afford to pay it, and developers or programs can get put on hold because it's too expensive to build. And we can totally avoid that by starting to proactively address it like now. I've just hit you with a lot there, so I'm going to jump on to the next slide. there's that. Sorry, any questions there?
No, you're good.
Oh,
You're
I
good.
thought I heard something. Okay. So yeah, this is kind of what I jumped the gun on a little bit earlier. Again, demographics, we know, right? We've got an older demographic that is retiring, that has got all the experience that we need. We might have, let's say, better adhesives, epoxies, and screeds, and leveling, and equipment, and all. We might have all these different things, which is great, speeds up the process, stronger, more versatile. But we still need people who can look at something and say that's not going to work, right? That wasn't picked up by the architect or the engineer or the superintendent, but that's a problem. And that comes through experience. That comes from those people who've been on sites for a very long time and can identify these things and have the ability to pass that on to the next generation, to the next like training coming up. And in addition, we need somebody be there to want to learn and to want to be interested. And that's part of the challenge. That's why I've got the competition and the market perception listed there. Is it this is not just, yeah, it's an industry problem and it's a construction problem, but really it's an image problem. Like we need to switch that. We need to change the mindset so that people see this as a viable career path. We need to be selling to the demographic what they want to hear and see. These are youth growing up with video games and YouTube and TikTok. Everything's like dopamine hits all day long. It's exciting, it's fast, it's quick. You got people on there telling them how they can earn millions of dollars by lying on a beach with a laptop, all kinds of garbage that just simply, unfortunately, puts a bigger void between us and them, because real skills and real abilities take time to learn, to nurture. There's going to be failures and difficulties, and you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. But it's how we present that. When we present, like I say, when we use entrepreneurship, when we use lifestyle, we can say, hey, I'm a soccer coach. I get to coach my kids' teams. Hey, I've got to work in Canada and America, and I've got friends who work in Dubai and Australia. There's a lifestyle aspect that we can be shown them, which is legitimate, that these skills you get to keep for life. They're not going to fade out or fizzle away. They're not going to be removed by AI. This is like real skills. It's in demand. We've been
and
building like since the dawn of time.
and potential income if you pursue this path. And we have need to lay out very clear instructions.
Yes.
Otherwise, you become that person who, I mean, how do you get ahead in Vancouver? I mean, you just don't on a trade wage.
Yeah.
It's awful. It
Yeah.
must be soul destroying for the essentially the boomers and the Gen Xers have racked up the credit cards for all the kids now.
Yeah.
It's awful, and so we have to show them a pathway to incentivize them to get involved. And otherwise, it's just I may as well become that TikToker and hope for the best.
But and that's what we've got to look at, is who is our competition? Like, what are we competing against? What are the industries? What are their selling features? What can we offer that they can't? Like, what do these people want? And like the younger generations now, back in the day, it was just about money and a solid career, and like, oh, this is a good job for life. They look at the world very differently. So our marketing and our approach has to match what they're looking for, right? Like part of my job, proposals, like trying to win work from clients, showing the client you understand their project, showing the client you understand their wants, their needs, that there's a values alignment between us and with them, like that this is going to work. We need to do the same thing to the youth that we're trying to approach to get people in our industry. Show them we understand them. Show them that, yeah, okay, we're not saying everything is all sunshine and rainbows, but here's a path. Here's the possibility. Here's how my CEO started off here and is now here. Like these are the options that are available to you. There's other avenues that this is what you're going to do, and you're never going to do anything different unless it dries up, right? Or some avenues whereby the value is decreasing. Now, 5 years from now, that role will be worth less. Let's say if you were in some of the creative industries, well, let's say you go back 10 or 15 years, a website designer was getting paid lots of money to build websites. Now people can build them on their own, like real fast. Yeah, they're not as good, but the point being is that's devalued over time, whereas skilled trades are increasing in value because of the scarcity. So these are the things we kind of need to make sure we're talking about. That like I say, the market and the competition, understanding who we're looking at and why. Yeah, we need to speak to parents. We can't just speak to kids in school. Yeah, we need government on board. Make sure that the marketing they're putting out there isn't just hammers and hard hats, right? Like that's attracting the people who are already interested. We need to attract the people who haven't even considered flooring, who haven't even considered construction. They're the people we need to target, and we target that by looking at what do they want from life? Do they want to travel, right? Do they want to be independent? Do they like to be working different places? Like what is it that they're about? These are the things we need to be talking about, not just same old coveralls, hard hats, and boots, because you're actually putting off a lot of people versus attracting the people who are already interested. They're coming anyway, so they're not the ones we need to target. We need to target the ones who haven't even considered it, or their parents, or both. So the parents could say, "Hey, little Joey, have you considered this? Right? Actually, I didn't realize it, but did you know this?" Or saying, "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking of doing this. oh no, son, well actually, Dad, we had people in today, and here's what their income is, and here's where they can go. And did you know the CEO of this company was actually on £50 a week once upon a time? Like, we need to give them what they need to be able to get interested and sell it up and down the food chain. And we need the assistance from everybody kind of speaking the same language, like with this conversation. 1 second. Sorry, I'm gonna cough all over everybody. Okay, let's see what we got here next. I'm going back. I feel like I missed one here. Okay, if I didn't, then that's fine. So we've got, obviously, we look at where we were. So I look back upon my journey, and there was a structure, right? There was the company I worked for was like, okay, I'm pretty sure they got like a grant or a subsidy or something in terms of, yeah, if you go to college, there was an aspect of it that was covered for. I had somewhere to go. It gave me a day away from just being on job sites. Like, it was kind of cool to go somewhere, mix with other people. So we need the structure. We need it to be recognized. So we've got like multiple different things here to tackle. But if we look at it in terms of, okay, from a flooring perspective, we need it to be seen as a trade. We need it to have somewhere to send the youth that are interested. We need to get it out to them. And I think this is where government kind of comes in, and these are where the conversations need to start to happen. Is it shouldn't just be, the National Floor Covering Association pushing these things. There's more chance of attracting more people into this industry, into construction, with the more trades options available to them, right? As you say, maybe they don't want to be a carpenter, maybe they don't want to be a pipe fitter welder, but they didn't even know flooring was a thing. What's it all about? How do we give them a taste of it? And then from government's perspective, I remember, because it was kind of as I was entering the industry, part of the reason why apprenticeships fell off in the UK was all of a sudden everybody went to be what we call a subby, a subcontractor. So it went from businesses employing everyone full time. You work for me. This is Barry Murphy contracting. The apprentices worked for us. The contractors worked for us. Everybody stuck with one company and didn't really hop around. That company kept them, fed all the time. Well, as a business owner, Barry Murphy Flooring, well, you paid a percentage on top of every single person that you employed. So when I was an employer, we paid, let's say it was 10% PAE on top of every single employee that worked for us. Now, if that employee was a subcontractor, we didn't pay that 10%. So if you're doing millions in revenue and your wage bill is, for simple numbers, 100,000, let's say $1 million a year, and you're paying an extra 10%, because every one of those, that $1 million you're spending is on a direct employee, that means obviously you're paying an extra $100,000 a year that if they were all subcontractors, you don't need to pay. So businesses all of a sudden got a little bit more savvy in terms of, well, why would I? Well, I'm supplying them with an apprentice, which is obviously a lot of there's work involved in that. I'm sending them to college. There's no guarantee they're going to stay with me afterwards. They might leave and go and work at Dave's Flooring for an extra £1 an hour. So all of a sudden it was disincentivized because of how taxes kind of were, because of how it impacted the small. We talk a lot about the big companies like the EllisDons of the world, but small businesses are the heartbeat of every construction market on the planet. And it all falls down to the small business owner who's got the least amount of money, the most amount of risk to decide, do I hire directly, do a subcontract out? Can I afford to take on an apprentice? Some of these guys are just, gals, one person in a van, right? And taking on one apprentice is a big deal to them. So what we need is the government to look at this and say, okay, we're all impacted by this. How do we incentivize businesses to take on board apprentices again? How do we encourage this? And there's different ways. There's direct way of money, obviously, like ways in which they can have grants or they can have access to funds or free this or discounted that. But the other way, so if they work that way from the ground up, let's say the small to medium sized contractors out there, little family businesses, there's tax benefits to taking on apprentices, whether it's directly to what you get, what the company gets, however they want to structure that, whatever way works, there has to be, they're not doing it now. So in order for them to do it now, something has to change, because if it was beneficial to them, they'd already be doing it. But it isn't. Right now, they see it as a cost, not an investment, because there's no guarantee that person's going to stay with them, and they've got to put the time, the effort, and their energy in. Plus, if they've got a lot of subcontractors, Well, the subcontractor doesn't want the hassle. I don't need an apprentice. I'm not guaranteeing anything. So how do we make that work? How do we incentivize it at the bottom of the food chain where all the risk is, where all the stress is? And at the top of the food chain, how do we encourage companies like an EllisDon or other big general contractors to look for that in the sub trades that they price with? And the example I often give is, well, there's two. There's health and safety and there's sustainability. So you go back to the construction industry has been around since we started walking upright. We need somewhere to live. We've got to build something and it keeps us safe and it shelters us from the weather. That's the start of the construction industry. Yeah, no one's paying for it, but that's when it started. Yeah. So let's say that's a millennia. It's only been 100 years that we've had actual health and safety in this industry. It didn't exist way back when. It wasn't a thing. It was just get out there, nobody cared until too many injuries, too many losses of life. And now, EllisDon, we can't even bid on a government project without the correct health and safety statistics. We can't bid on work if we've got a poor health and safety track record. It goes against our values. It goes against who we are anyway, but it's forced by government. So if I bid a job and it's a $10 million job and it's not a traditional, like subtrades bid lump sum. So most flooring contractors who will be listening to this, they're basically saying, here you go, EllisDon, it's $100,000 for us to come and install, linoleum or carpet tiles across this university. And we're looking at it and we're like, okay, looking at who do we get the best value out of, who we work with before. But it's really a numbers game. But when we win that job for that university, it's typically not a numbers game or not traditional numbers game. It's not dollars. It's down to the client, the university saying, okay, tell me how you're going to build it. Tell me what your health and safety records like. Tell me what your processes. Tell me what your procedures. Tell me what your people. So we, if it's a construction management contract, not a lump sum contract, we have to show them how we put our best foot forward in all these different areas. So each one of those areas has got a point score to it. So let's say there's 100 points. 5 points might be health and safety. 5 points could be sustainability. So if we have a terrible track record in health and safety, then immediately you could lose $100 million job just because your health and safety track record is insufficient. If you have no sustainability clue whatsoever, you don't have a department like we do, you don't have specialists who are looking at sustainability, who are looking at ESG, then you could lose another 5 points. So you could be a really good contractor, you could even be a lower price, but because you don't have the relevant expertise and criteria in these areas, you're going to be scored lower, so you got less likelihood of winning the job. So you imagine if government was to say, okay, well, we need to get apprenticeships going. We need to be working with industries and companies that are strong when it comes to apprenticeships. So we're going to put in a criteria for scoring on all government projects that we require, whatever it is that's decided upon, this proof that we are an apprenticeship driven or not. And when I say apprentice, I'm not talking like EllisDon employing the apprentices, because most general contractors now, they're all subbed out, right? I'm saying we use this type of contractor who is certified as apprentice registered, whatever it is, right? Like whatever this mythical concept is, it would force big companies, like we're talking, EllisDon, PCL, billion-dollar projects and above, we could lose a project simply because we don't score well on a certain criteria. And
so how much does that influence the point system there for health and safety, as an example? Who you choose as a sub trade? Let's pick on flooring for an example. Lump sum contracts going to be very price sensitive. We always on this side of the fence, we think, well, they're just going to go low bid.
Yeah. So for us, that's a key driver. If we're looking at it, we need to have health and safety needs to be a priority for EllisDon, but it needs to be for every single person who works on that site. So we don't want contractors on site who haven't got the relevant and necessary health and safety procedures, protocols, and insurances in place, because it's a risk that we're not willing to take. You can't stand at the top of the hill saying, yeah, we believe in this, but then hire the complete opposite, right? So that's what I'm saying. If you need to because the government's mandated it, it forces the industry. You may have chose to do it anyway, but not everybody will. And then you're competing against companies that aren't. So you're going to lose jobs because you're holding yourself to a high standard, but you might be competing against somebody who isn't. So for us, like for big contractors, that's why big contractors want to compete against other big contractors, because we know Baird, PCL, we know Leadcore. Companies have got a similar values, similar standards, similar quality requirements, right? Similar health and safety, sustainability. We don't want to compete against the smaller companies that maybe if it's lump sum, they don't have any of those things and the client doesn't care. They just want to look at the lowest number. So when you factor in a way, and like I said, I'm not saying I've got the answer, I'm just saying it's a possibility of somehow, I did see it recently on a submission, the City of Edmonton. I'm incorporating more into some civil work now. It's not something I've ever dealt with really before, but now I was looking at a proposal and it had in there to do with like training. It didn't have specifics, like it wasn't like hardened into apprenticeships or anything, but there was a line in there for points talking about, the training of people and staff and whatnot. And this is the point I'm getting at. The more sophisticated government gets in terms of saying, okay, if we want to encourage people to enter the trades, we want to encourage apprenticeships and skilled trades, we're going to come up with this scoring system, or we're going to come up with this regulation that says, Chris's flooring is a certified X, right? That catches the requirements needed. We know that business hires, trains, looks after X amount of apprentices or whatever it is. They're certified. They've done a due diligence versus Barry's flooring doesn't. They're not certified, so they can't even bid on this job, right?
So
and we've got to.
One of the
Sorry.
things that we were trying to do with our membership by publicizing it, you can go onto our website and see every member in every province. One of the ways we were trying to differentiate the members and give them a boost was to put in the restriction that you could only be a member if you are a bondable entity.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's the only way you can police it. No one's going to be phoning around making sure that you've done this or you've done that.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
training and you're treating your people well. It's just not
Yeah.
going to happen. So very quickly, you could just say, well, you can't join unless you prove that you can be bonded. And then
Yeah,
all of a
we have
sudden,
that.
you are a better company than one that can't, because if you can't get bonding, it probably means that you're not skilled
Yeah.
at that trade, or you're one man in a van, don't have the resources, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah, and the same for us. EllisDon bonding is critical. Like that's something we look for. Like there's all kinds of like technical like elements out there where we got to hit all these criteria. And what I'm saying is ultimately it should be, if we want it to be specific to apprenticeships, specific to people hiring, training, whatever it is, come up with whatever the scoring criteria is, come up with a way of going to, let's say, the National Floor Covering Association and then other equivalent associations for their trades and say, hey, we want to put this in place because we're going to be asking all the big GCs to show that they're working with companies that are doing this. Here's the system. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what it's proof of concept of. Here's the benefit. And then that way, where the money is being spent, obviously this is through public. But there's lots and lots of money spent in public. It's being pushed down from the top down to say, we want companies that are actively and proactively giving back by training, by investing in youth, by investing in training people and sharing those skills. At the same token, we're going to go to the bottom end of the spectrum, to the smaller companies, and say, okay, maybe there's a way in which we can help you get trained. Maybe there's offerings here on taxes for retaining people who technically could retire but want to choose to stay and work. We can give them a tax benefit because we know you need them in the industry. Like whatever it is, something here that also ties to academia to say, okay, yeah, Nate or whoever it is, we know you're building this skills center. We know it's a supply and demand thing. We're going to cause the demands because we're basically going to push people into getting more training. We're going to call it as a requirement. So consider this, right? Like this, that's what I'm saying. It can't be tackled in a silo. It can't just be government and it can't just be academia. It can't just be an association. It can't just be a general contractor. These have to be group conversations where, it's like the whole IPD is like a specialist contract whereby it's kind of like a very collaborative model. And at the center of that model, the project is considered the client. So the client isn't, Alberta infrastructure. The project is the client, and we all act under the best interests of the project. And when you look at the industry as the project, and you say, okay, let's leave your EllisDon hat, let's leave your whatever hat over here. What do we need to do? Whether it's governments, whether it's industry, what do we all need to talk about? What requires you to put on this training? What do you need to see? How much? What's it going to cost? How many people? What makes it a viable opportunity for you? How many do you need to see to make it a regulation for your association? For you to spec it, what's it going to be? Like we need to have these conversations. Otherwise, party A is working over here. Sounds like a great idea. And then when it hits the street, it just doesn't work. It doesn't, something's been
Yeah.
missed or skipped, or the mom and pop flooring company is like, well, that's no good because I can't get people to come and want to work for me. And B, when I do, there's nothing that ties them to me, or there's no structure that like, but that's why it has to be a group conversation. Otherwise,
The
it's we're just going to ping
construction
pong
industry,
off each other.
construction industry lives and dies based on communication, healthy communication going through all the channels. And yet, it's probably the thing that challenges it most with regards to bad communication at the same time. I know how fractured our industry is, let alone all the other trades you have to deal with. And the builder in this is the switchboard. You're ultimately you're connected to the most entities, and everybody looks to you for the leadership. You're the generals. You're running those jobs. It's your neck's on the line essentially. And so it does start with you guys, and it's great to hear that you're trying to bring that unity and that gravity behind the scenes. It's well, anything we can
Yeah,
do to
and
help
for
is
sure,
there.
and that's partly why we've got this alliance group with it. So it's not just EllisDon; it is four of the biggest contractors in Canada sitting around one table, along with the local association, along with the institution, with Nate to say, okay, this is kind of being driven by us in terms of by industry. We're saying, okay, we want to push on this. We need your advice. We need your guidance. The ECA are going to go to government and present what we're talking about and have these conversations and say, okay, here's what's coming up. Here's what we need to identify. Nate in the room, hearing, understanding, like at the end of the day, what can we do, what can't we do, so that like eventually we can build like a nucleus and say, okay, here's what we've come up with, and then we can feed that out to anybody and everybody who's interested. We can say, here's the approach that we've taken. Here's what we're getting with government. Here's how it can impact and strengthen from the flooring associations through to the carpentry, through to you name it. Here's what's working, here's why it's working. And if we all kind of sing on the same hymn sheet, governments are more than happy. What they don't want is me coming in and saying one thing and
Right.
then you coming in and saying a contradictory other thing. Sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Like we if it's splintered, it doesn't work. It's weak, right? It's like we all have to be aligned and say, okay, yeah, I'm putting my flooring hat to one side and I'm putting my EllisDon hat to one side. As an industry, we just need to get on the same page. We've got a multitude of problems that we need to tackle. And if we tackle them holistically and we look at it in the right manner and you come with us, like we're not telling you what to do to the government, we're just saying here is what we see, here's what we feel, here's what we know. You tell us what you're seeing and what you're feeling. And between the two of us, guaranteed there's a solution. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to help us get to 2030 with a lot less problems. And it's only going to come from all of us together. Otherwise, government's going to be like, well, you're saying this and you're saying this, and we're spending millions and billions on this, and
Yeah.
then it's not going to work.
Barry, you're at the 50-minute mark.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I don't know whether I've covered everything I planned on covering, but hopefully, I'm kind of getting there. That the main thing is this is what needs to happen, right? Like this conversation, these conversations, you need to be speaking to your members, so looking at the pain points of saying, okay, what like if you were to do a little census of all of your members, and obviously it's different for you. You've got manufacturers and you've got actual flooring contractors, so it's a little bit different in terms of what's what. But you look at the skill side and you look at the contractors who are out there who are laying all the floors in these hospitals, in these big projects. What's the challenges you're facing, like in across the board? Is it straight recruitment? Is it the training? Like, is it retention? What
Well,
is it like?
and I think that our membership, because they're all bondable entities, which means they are a certain setup, they've got real
Yeah,
overhead and resources to do a great job and become bondable. They're all invested in this, and they have the resources to get involved in training at a higher level and dedicate some effort to this, as opposed to the the alternative, which is just look into a tailgate warranty and invoice as quickly as you can and move on to the next and argue about it later. So it's a great starting point is our membership, I'd say. We get a lot of input. We got a committee that's dealing with bringing exposure to the flooring trade to the school districts and training involved in that as well, with like 25 people on the committee or something. It's
Yeah.
ballooned. There's so much interest.
I would say that you've got obviously your members are the right types of organizations, as you say, but what are their pain points when they're bidding jobs, losing jobs, or when their employees are leaving them to go somewhere else, like that maybe isn't a bonded entity, or like what are those problems, right? Like what are those pain points? What are those difficulties? Because that's an issue we've got to rectify too, right? Like what's the benefit of obviously operating safely and operating, with apprenticeships? Like there has to be an advantage, and there has to be, more importantly, a disadvantage to the companies that are choosing not to be. There has to be, otherwise, like you just like I say, my friend still runs a company in the UK. They work all over. They do some very large projects, and he said it's really difficult to make a dent, to make a change, because for every step forward, there's a step or two back. There's regulations, there's challenges, there's money issues, there's people hopping around. There's got to be more structure. Like there's got to be something whereby we say, okay, if this country is going to have a population of this, and we're going to spend this on construction nationally, like what's the plan? Because just saying it sounds great, but if we physically cannot do it because we don't have the people, and we can't bring people in fast enough, and why would we want to bring people in fast enough when we know there's an element of the market and sector and population that are unemployed, or that are going to need to pivot in employment? Like we've just got to be a bit smarter. And I think doing your research and your homework with your members, both in terms of what are you doing that's working, what isn't working, what's keeping you up at night, and what are the challenges, everything from, like I say, specific to trades and skills and people, because obviously there's a gazillion challenges in any business and industry, but specific to hiring, training, and structure. Figure out what that is. I guarantee you the flooring industry challenges will be pretty much the same as the carpentry challenges over here. Yeah, different product, different trades, same challenges in terms of what's what. Like, how do we get all this and bring it into one fold and say, okay, we represent 10 governing bodies of all these different trades, all these different sectors, and between the 10 of us, these pain points overlap. These challenges are repeated in every one of these. So we, as a consortium, as a group of an alliance of 10 or 20 different trades industries, we want to have this conversation because it benefits all of us ultimately. Nobody is going to, not everybody wants to be a carpenter, not everybody wants to be a floor layer, not everybody wants to be a painter and decorator. There's scarcity, it's not a win-loss scenario. There's enough to go around, but we're all having the same problems. Let's come up with a solution that kind of benefits everybody, and then where they choose to go is where they choose to go. Like the kids are going to go where they want to go. People who move over from overseas are going to go into whatever trade they want. But if the same systemic problems are inherent in every sector and every trade, like we need to be talking and we need to narrow it down. Maybe it's just a top three. Maybe it's a whatever it is, and then we can go back and say, okay, is this caused by a specific demographic? Is this a tax thing? Is this an incentive thing? What is it? Like what's causing it? And once we know what the root cause is, we can put things in place. But without that, if you're government, you might be saying, well, I've just got lots of people whining and moaning about not having things, and I'm putting billions of dollars into an industry. Like, what's the problem, right? Like we need to come
on one of the committees we're running. We've got the Alberta government or the representative for trades from the government is on that committee and very engaged. He's a great guy. He's doesn't suffer fools, and he wants to get stuff done. And we are making headway. It might be interesting for you to see what we're up to, because I mean, at the end of the day, you're EllisDon. You're huge and should be part of stuff like this. Maybe there's more trades that could be involved in what we're doing just for the flooring aspect of it. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who comes into the construction industry is a plus, because they could end up in your trade, not just becoming an electrician, right? So that would be maybe interesting for you to consider
Yeah, certainly.
We can talk offline about that. Coming up to about 4 minutes left. I'm not sure if how
Yeah.
are you doing with your slides?
I'm pretty much wrapped. I've kind of been through everything that I kind of wanted to go through. It was more now in case there was any questions or I wanted a little bit of time at the end. But I know we've kind of talked as we're going, and I know because we had to shuffle this a bunch of times, your attendance dropped off a little bit. But is there anything off the cuff that maybe we haven't touched on or talked about, or anything that springs to mind that I can maybe round things out with?
Anything from who we got left? Tyler or Gail? If not, I mean, for me, it's we want to connect with EllisDon on this subject and use your gravity and make available our gravity, and together we'll move the needle in the right direction at the very least. So we should keep this conversation going.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I'd like to, and as I say, as flooring is something that's always been a part of my life, and
Yeah,
again, and as somebody who's proud to have come through that way and can speak to it, who could stand in front of anybody and say, well, you can go from 15 years of age with no ambition and no real education and build a business or build a career and travel and do all these different things. There's options there that people just aren't aware of. The youth isn't aware of it, the parents aren't aware of it, the teachers aren't aware of it. And as an industry, we don't sell it well enough. Like we people need to see that there's opportunity there. Opportunity is rife in construction, and it's overshadowed, I feel, because people look at the negatives or look at the obvious, right? They may not want to wear a hard hat, boots. They don't maybe, but you know what? You might only do that for 5 to 10 years of your working career. You might spend the following 30 in a supervisory capacity as a business owner, as a consultant, or for a general contractor in an entirely different role. Like, but it's a great place to start out, and it's grounding. Like working around tradespeople, they don't suffer fools, and it'll teach you a good work ethic. It'll teach you a good practice, and again, it's beneficial in everyday life. Like you can do stuff in your own home for your own family. Like there's lots of pluses to it, and that's
As I like to say when I try to push the universities aside and spotlight or highlight the trades, is don't let school get in the way of your education.
that's right. That's very right.
I one last thing from me on the subject of the membership list and access to all bondable companies from BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario. Is that of interest to EllisDon's estimators who are issuing contracts? I know it was to an architectural firm one time. I was presenting a lunch and learn, and they were so engaged, this firm, in what I was talking about, which was problems in flooring and what are the solutions, that at the end I said, I'm just getting this feedback that makes me ask, would it be of interest to you guys, architects in this case, to see a membership of flooring companies that are bondable and all the differences that brings to the table? And they said, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Where's that list? And so I put it up. And I said, I said, I had no idea you would. I didn't realize that you could influence that. Oh, yeah, they said. Anyway, about 3 weeks later, out popped this spec publicly on I think it was a school build at the time. And it said, only NFCA members can bid on or do this work. And it came from that architectural firm. And I went, what? I mean, my phone lit up because
Yeah,
we only had like 15 members in BC at the time. That was a British Columbia job.
yeah.
1,500 to 2,000 contractors suddenly couldn't bid on that work, and they weren't very happy about it.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, right? Like in terms of finding that the balance with stuff. But for sure, for us, we go through it. We have internal systems that we need to make sure. So knowing a list of them means maybe there's people that you can put on your bid list for projects that typically you wouldn't have or you haven't dealt with in the past. But it shows that there's a level of competency there, that there's a level of the right, as I say, it's all about values. You want the right company. Yeah, we know numbers have got to be numbers and they've got to be where they got to be, but you want to know that you're dealing with a reputable company that's got the capacity and the skills and
Yeah,
right
well, and right at the gate,
records.
you if you need three bids to have a competitive situation, then you've got three bondable companies. It's going to be a level bidding field.
Yeah, yeah,
So
100%.
there you go.
Yeah, you happily share that with me for sure.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, Barry,
Gentlemen, I'm just going to stop the recording.
Okay.